Hello again. It's day 131 of a screenwriter's journey. Another pretty long day. I guess that's a good thing unless you're doing a voiceover for it. Who knows how many sessions it will take me to get through. All right, so it feels like that long day, which was either yesterday or the day before, was some pretty good progress. And then we had a short day, and now we're back to a longer one. And I'm still in this sort of debate stage, which follows the the old catalyst inciting incident. The thing that I'm realizing is, and I don't know the answer to this, can you have a catalyst, an inciting incident, and then the scene bleeds over into where the debate starts? Because that's kind of what I have going on here. I've got Lexi finding out all this stuff from Holly, and it's all kind of, I don't know where the scene starts exactly, but it feels like it starts, at about 11 or 12 or whatever. But now here we are on page 15, and they're still basically talking. And what's happening, of course, is that Lexi is the one that had something happen to her. She found out about her mom and all this stuff, and now she's sort of having the debate instead of Holly. So, yeah, what do you do with that? It's not really how it should be, and I'm obviously not recognizing that. So here's a teachable moment. Sometimes you get so wrapped up in what you think is a good scene. You've got good dialogue, you're revealing character, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is exposition, obviously, but hopefully, it's revealing a little character, but it's probably more exhibition. No, I think it's exposition. That would be a different film. And there's the cat. So the point that I was making before the cat started meowing is that you sometimes get into a scene and then you need to step back and say, now, first of all, what's the purposes of this scene? Where is it happening in my script? Should it be happening here? Should it be happening elsewhere? Should it not be happening at all? Am I telling the right person's story? How am I telling it? There's really tons of questions that, unfortunately, you constantly have to be asking yourself over the course of writing a script and beyond. So I'm just reading what I wrote here, and let's be frank. Can I be frank with you? Can I be George with you? Can I be Mary with you? Not entirely loving it. I'm sort of forcing, to some extent, my previous story points, which is that they go to the race place. They mention the eggs factory, and then that Eagle Creek escape. And I don't mind those locations. I think some cool stuff can still happen at that racetrack. And who knows, maybe we'll end up going there anyways. But there is a good line there. I don't know if I had written that before or not, about the Denny's and the Cracker Barrel. I think that's kind of funny. But the thing about Holly knowing about the weekend getaway, I guess it's not really totally unbelievable, because she knows Abby to some extent, and she knows the parents, the adoptive parents, and so she certainly could have found out about it. And so my reasoning was, she's found out about it, and now she has sort of made pre-arrangements or tentative arrangements for Rachel to go there. And of course, Lexi doesn't know any of this right now. The audience doesn't know any of this. They could have a teeny tiny hint of it. But the problem is, and maybe so. She's turning 18. She's legal and adult. Maybe she's a pretty stable kid, pretty mature. And her boyfriend, Jake, is 21. obviously Luke is 21, Abby is 20. Would the parents have any objections with her doing this? And again, legally, they're not going to stop her, but if she's a good kid, I mean, when my kids were 18, I guess that's not even a question. When my kids were 18, would have I let them go with friends to a place that's kind of a secluded romantic place? Yeah, that's not going to happen. I guess using that criteria, my whole premise is totally flawed. So I might need to rethink that. I literally just thought of that now. I mean, well, they don't want to lie to him. I was going to say if, like, 3 or 4 guys were going to go fishing or something for a weekend, or like a girls' weekend, but a co-ed thing, unless they were super good friends and you knew that they were just friends, maybe church friends or next door neighbor friends that they'd known for a long time, where you weren't worried about any hanky or panky, then maybe you would. So I don't know. Might have to rethink that. And so, anyways, they're going through this dialogue here. They're kind of striking a bargain, kind of setting the parameters of what might happen. And Holly's reminding her, since you're 18, we can't stop you, which, legally they can't. Physically, obviously, they could. So let's see. This scene starts at the bottom of 11. And I'm just going through it. I still think that whole backstory is too much. Whether it's interesting or not, I don't know, but it just feels like it's too long. Sorry, I hit the microphone. It's probably too much. Okay, so I'm just kind of, now that I have this scene, I'm kind of going through it and trying to probably shorten it a little bit and tweak some of the dialogue, see where we are. Fortunately, I cut that line where she said "at your service" because that was horrible. Let's not kid ourselves or kid myself. Nothing feels better than going through a scene that's like 3.5 to 4 pages long, and when you're done with it, it's like just under 3 or 2.5. And then, of course, getting the same information out. It's funny how in the revisions I'm going through and I'm like, I don't know about that, and I keep changing. U.S. Marshal liked me all these years. So I don't know that I need to commentate much on what I'm doing here because I'm really just trying to figure it out. Biological. That's 5-syllable word. That would be a lot instead of saying my real mom. Even my birth mom, that's 1 syllable. And then I was thinking of using biological, which I guess it rolls off the tongue pretty well, but I don't know. Whoop. So now Lexi is asking an important question, and I don't know that Holly knows the answer to this. As I wrote, it's uncertainty or guilt or something. So maybe Holly knows something. Maybe she doesn't know everything, but whatever she knows, she obviously hasn't told Lexi. But it's a key question, obviously. The mom has abandoned her, and why did she really do that? Lexi draws a conclusion, which I think is a pretty succinct way of putting it. Hopefully, it's not like overly clever, but it's something that she could draw that conclusion and it would come out as simple as that. Because again, all dialogue is like a compression of real dialogue. It's artificially constructed to cut out all the words that are just sort of noise and sort of, filler. Because as crazy as it seems, not only does every line of dialogue have to do something for the story, well, literally every word can't, because that would be a tall order, but there are ways of writing the same sentence, the same question in dialogue to make it shorter. Are you going to go over to the store? Or, you go into the store. Not proper English maybe, but that's what you got to do to make it better. Don't know what I'm talking about right now. All right, let's see. So, yeah, I'm just reworking this scene. I could sing or provide a musical interlude while I'm watching myself here. Yeah, I guess without getting totally off track and talking about something else, not a lot to add. I did mention the other day that this debate section of a script can be tricky. I think my tendency may be to write too few scenes with too much, not necessarily too much going on, but at least in this script, it feels like I don't have that many scenes, which is not necessarily good or bad, but sometimes it's easier to move the story along when you have a number of scenes. I don't know if that makes sense or not. When you get into like action and something is logically following something else, it's like A, B, C, D, E, F, G instead of A and then B, which kind of feels like what I'm doing here. If this is the A scene, it's like, hey, a lot is going on here. Grabs a handful of fries, stomps up the thing, goes after him, looks over. Yeah, I don't like this at all. Oh man, it's just crazy how you write this stuff and sometimes 10 seconds later you cringe, sometimes 10 minutes later, 10 days later, in this case, 6 weeks, almost 6 weeks later, it's just, and I don't know if I will have gone over this in the meantime. I'm sure I have between present day, because I've written just today, which is January 8th, 2022. It's a Saturday, so I got to write quite a bit today. I've written for about 2 hours, I think. Good for me. And then when I do the voiceover in a few weeks, I'll be like, oh my gosh, why'd you write for so long? Yeah, I mean, some of this works and some of it doesn't. Feel free to fast forward through this section, or maybe you're already watching this on like 1.5 or 1.75, or maybe even 2x. I mean, I started today. I don't know how long I've been writing in real time, but even in sped up time, I started the day on page 15, and I think I'm on page 16. So that is a lot of work, although I have gone back. Oh, look at that. So, boom, cut the scene. So now comes a follow-up. So they've had this conversation. Lexi's got a bunch of information. Holly's gotten a bunch off her chest and has kind of set up what is going to happen in theory. I don't know that Lexi is 100% committed to it, but now Abby is over. Well, Abby, she probably still lives at home. I guess that's what I'm presuming. And she's in Lexi's room, and so they're talking like sisters do. And Lexi has just told Abby, basically given her a summary of everything that's happened, and now Abby is reacting to that. And we see by her reaction that she thinks it's kind of cool that now Lexi knows all this stuff. And sort of like the previous drafts, or at least the one that I thought was done at the time, Lexi's main concern is Jake and what's he going to think of her having this tie to the mob, mafia, organized crime, whatever. And I think it's not a stretch to imagine an 18-year-old girl really being worried about that, especially if she's kind of serious about this guy or thinks she is. So I think it makes sense. I don't know if it makes her look a little weak or a little, I don't know, meek or weak or a little unfeminine. No, not really. Well, she's depending on a guy, so if he dumps her, then she'll be a mess, and that's the stereotype of a, weak female or something. But is this, I guess this is virgin writing here. They're not my real parents. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I had that idea literally on the spur of the moment that I literally, as I was writing, I was like, oh, what if Abby's also adopted, was a foster child? And it was one of those things where it seemed like a cool plot device. And then, spoiler alert, not too long after I wrote it, I'm like, too convenient. But once I wrote it, I wanted to commit at least a little to it, so I'm trying some follow-up stuff, and I'm not going to belabor the point in the script, but we'll see how it works. Let's just put it like that. So now Abby is proposing that they drive up together, she and Lexi, and the brothers drive up together. And then, Lexi's concern obviously is still the whole thing about who to tell about the real mom, what to tell them, etc. The only parents I was downstairs wondering. Oh. So, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to judge how horrible this is, or maybe people are reading it there on YouTube as I'm talking, and they're going, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I need to hire Jack for my next movie. While you're thinking about that, watch The Key on Amazon Prime. I haven't plugged that in a long time. Or The End of Art on YouTube. They're both free if you're an Amazon Prime member. Otherwise, you can rent it for 99 cents. In the past 9 months, one person has. I don't know that I ever saw any money, now that I think about it. So it looks like I'm getting rid of a bunch of dialogue here. They can be there. Oh, here I am back on page 15. What a big surprise. So I'm obviously going back and changing some reality based on that scene I just wrote, which is, of course, always the beauty of being the writer, is that if you come up with something better or something that leads us to a different place, you can go back and fix the first scene. It's especially nice, and I mentioned this before, and I'm literally dumbfounded by the thought of how we all used to write. Well, unless you haven't been writing so long that in the old days you used a typewriter, which I guess you would probably have to be at least in your 40s, which I am at least. But I'm just thinking of when you make changes. I literally don't know how I did that. Say you're on page 10 or 12 and you write, and you get to page 18 and you change 2 lines of dialogue that necessitates a change in that scene on page 12. And so I mean, you think about it. You go back, you put a new piece of paper in the typewriter, you make that change, but obviously, unless you have the exact length of scene the same, you have to rewrite everything on 13, 14, 15, whatever, until you catch up to where you are. Or did I just like strike through? I should try to see if I have one of my old scripts. I'm sure I threw them away, but gosh, that's just crazy to think about that. Because, I mean, literally you could cut and paste pages together if you had to. But it's just very weird to think about. Because, I mean, that had to be my first 10, more than that. Well, computers were processors, probably the early 80s. So I guess not that long that I had to do it the old-fashioned way in a typewriter. Maybe a few years. I'm not going to discuss any years or ages because it's the eternal noon right now. All right. So Abby is trying to pep Lexi up a little bit regarding the possibility that Jake is going to dump her. And, you know, just said that stuff about studied for her test and help her on her papers. Edited that essay. Trying to poke a little joke here. You're only half blood, only trying to figure out a clever way to say that, and then it ends up with like a nice sisterly pillow fight, it looks like. And now I completely changing that dialogue and putting a thing alluding to the fact that the two brothers, being identical twins, look a lot alike, and that she'd never know the difference, which could be, if that line stands, it could be from some foreshadowing, couldn't it? Yes, it could. Man, that line of Lexi's on page 17 about kick insecurity. Please get rid of that. Thank goodness. Kind of twisted. That's going to twist anything. Well, sister. Go finish the packing. All right, so rewrote that scene. Whoops. Don't tell me what. Oh, I changed his name because there were so many instances of H words. I had Harper, and of course we've got Holly, and then we've got Hogan later on. I can't believe I'm going back and just fixing this up. Move forward, Jack. Good Lord. And I don't know why I didn't just do a search and replace for Harper and replace it with McNeil. Sometimes, I don't know if I don't trust the computer to do it or not, but sometimes I just like to know that it's been done. So, I have to admit, I don't know what's prompted me to go back and start making these changes. I got up to page, 17 or 18, getting well in through the debate. And again, it's mostly Lexi's debate, so stay tuned on that. But now I'm literally going through and changing things. All right, so they come outside. Yeah, I had the idea, because I've been toying with the idea that did Rachel tell Lexi, if that is indeed her name at this point, what exactly was going on. And obviously it's apparent that she didn't, and so Rachel is defending herself by saying, it seemed best. I didn't want to worry her. I didn't want to have some sleepless nights leading up to this, which may or may not have been a great idea. But, excuse me, that's sort of what Rachel is. I mean, that is her justification for this. All right. So Rachel's line, "Get me out of here," is one of those where, I mean, literally get me out of here. But as we'll come to find out, it really is a little deeper than that. It's a little more, she's really talking about something more than that. And you can probably guess what it is. Okay, so I'm changing this. Let's see. Little girl lights is up. So that I just saved a little room. Bravo for me. And now I'm wondering what the girl who will soon to be known as Lexi, where kind of her head is. Does she know everything that's going on? Does the girl think that the mom knows everything that's going on? Holly doesn't really want to answer, and she's thinking of a way out of this, and her instinct is to turn. She sees McNeil there, and that gives her the idea that, hey, I'm just going to kind of pass the buck here, which, if you're in politics, you're probably pretty good at. So, and I kind of like that. For how long? And then, interesting. This may change again in my next draft. Can you believe it? Are you shocked that I'm actually changing something? This is the kind of thing where, again, I'm sorry, I just literally can't get over it. When I'm thinking of typing these on a typewriter, just look at all these changes I'm making. And it's not me, it's everybody who writes. Next time you sit down and write anything, an email, let alone a script, a story, a novel, just picture yourself every time you make a change of either having to get the whiteout stuff or having that correcting tape in your Selectric typewriter that you can go back and tap, 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 get rid of the letters, and then tap, 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 put in the new ones. Let alone paragraphs and not having to strike through things, not having to get out a big bucket of whiteout and just slathering it over your page or cutting them up. It's just, I said it a million times, but it's just crazy. All right. So this has been minorly changed, but another thing is that sometimes you get a minor character that literally serves the purpose of either giving exposition or setting up the main character, the protagonist or the antagonist, to reveal some story by asking some questions. And do you do that, or do you have a more central character so you have two characters that both have a story to tell? You can certainly do that, and I mean, think of all the great films that have. It's probably harder because you have to kind of give each character equal weight, especially when you think of romantic comedies or any love story where you've got boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy loses girl, boy falls in love with girl, and vice versa. You really, since the audience is cheering for both of them, a lot of times I'm getting way off track here, but there is no real antagonist humanly in a romantic comedy necessarily. You could call the situation or the predicament, but my point was, when you've got two equal characters, When Harry Met Sally, or fill in the blank. Does that make it harder to write a scene because you really need to have both of them equally moving forward and their character arcs? I guess if it's a love story, they could potentially just have one arc they're following, and hopefully that's to live happily ever after. All right. Learn anything there? All right. So I'm still have this. My name's not Lexi. It is now, and this happens at the foster home. Sorry, I almost fell asleep there for a minute. McNeil is this there to kind of move her along. So now Holly's talking to Paul. And as she said, I don't see the harm. Why are we discouraged from getting involved? But then I kind of spun it and I thought, what she really wants to know is, does it get any easier? Is it simpler to leave kids? And Paul's perspective on this is, oh my gosh, you just were in a situation that went nearly perfectly, and you're not really complaining, but you're thinking it is a big stressful situation when really it went better than probably a great percentage of their outcomes. Paul's line at the beginning of that page 8, though, is like so thick with not bogus exposition, but poorly written in my estimation, because it's basically explaining why Holly was in the situation she was. And so I'm obviously struggling with this because I feel like I've been on page 6, 7, and 8 on and off for the last 3 days. All right, so we're jumping ahead as we did before. Let's see what changes here. That wasn't a yawn. Trying to shorten that up because it's 4 lines of dialogue. I don't know how many other writers really super pay attention to their formatting in terms of how the script lays out on a page. As I've said several times, for my action and description, 3 lines is usually my max. 4 lines, probably once or twice a script, but generally 3 lines. And I mean, there's no magic to it. You just hit the enter key and then you start a new paragraph, because readers love their white space. And as I said in earlier voiceovers, I think to some extent you can sort of direct the script a little bit with paragraphs, because, and this isn't always true as I discovered as I read through my scripts, but a lot of times one sentence or one paragraph will be one camera shot. So for instance, when he gives Holly a chance to respond, maybe it's a shot of Paul and then we cut to Holly, she remains silent. We cut back to Paul, or to the 2 shot as he drops the manila envelope. Or in this case, I've kind of rewritten it. I've storyboarded it there, which is kind of cheating when she doesn't. I mean, the other thing is you want to make it very readable and you want it to make it go fast. So, you certainly don't say close up, wide angle, low angle, establishing shot. But again, instead of just writing in a dense paragraph, if you've got a 6-7 line paragraph, think about what are the odds that that's going to be just one shot. If you're panning a room slowly to set up a scene or something, of course, you're not going to put in the script, the camera pans from left to right to reveal the furniture of the 18th century, whatever period, and then describe it like you would a novel. And that's not to say the room is going to be bare, but if you set the stage, you've got to let the set decorator and the production people, set designer and all that stuff, Did I say set designer twice? Art director, whatever. You got to let them take care of that, unless it's super, super important that there's a certain type of chair or couch or the carpet is a certain color, because that is the key to the story. But other than that, I mean, you got to get on with it. A lot of people, I mean, good writers, but they really, to me, they really over describe something. And I mean, when you say, you know, the fire, the flames lick the blah, 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 or the babbling brook flows freely down the cool autumn day, or 16 leaves fall off a tree in the background or something. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but unless it is intimately tied to the script, to the story, don't need it. For the most part, and I've mentioned this before, I mean, the way I learned and was taught is that you should write your description and your action so that you can see what you write. And I do take liberties with that and do a little editorializing. I kind of may describe how a character is feeling, but just in a very short way so the actor can go, okay, I get it, or the director. And again, you don't have to do that unless they're feeling or acting or expressing contrary to what you would think they would. And that could lead to interesting situations where you have a character say what appears to be good news and someone takes it completely like it's horrible news, and that's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? So that can be good. But other than that, I'm just looking at what I'm writing here. Lexi swallows hard. You know, that could be literal. That could just be figurative. Sorry. The Lexi digests the info dump for several long moments. You could just say Lexi thinks, or you could just say beat, or you just don't say anything and let the actor and the director figure out that there's going to be a little pause there or something. But in general, as you see, I would say, I'd have to look through a script and see, but I'd say a majority of my action and description lines are one or two, vast majority are one or two. I'd say probably more one than two, and certainly more two than three, and without question, more three than four. And I think there are some times when I don't even need something and I put it in, like Lexi processes the news. I mean, that to me is another way of saying a beat, just so the dialogue isn't like rapid fire, which when you watch, if you ever watch like third and fourth, fifth graders put on a play, they have been so consumed and so concerned with learning their lines that they can't wait to say their next line. So an act will play out like 25% faster than it would if, or even more than that, if you had professionals doing the same scene. It's just like diddle 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 diddle. So by putting in these little breakups, not literally breakups, but putting in little bits there, it slows it down, and hopefully it makes it, you know, about like it should be. You know, when you have something like in the middle of 12, she looks Holly up and down, seeing her in a whole new light, that is something that maybe the actress would do on her own, but to put it in there is a little cue that, okay, you've just learned a big bit of info, you've had an info dump, and so now pause and like literally give her an up and down, and oh my gosh, I don't even know you after all these years. Okay. It's hard to believe, but I guess it's not, that I got up to page whatever I said, 17 or 18, and then I don't know, something inside me said, Jack, you better go back and either shorten it, make some changes, see what you wrote, thinking that I was just going to go straight through and come back to page 18 and be super happy with it. No, I don't know. It doesn't happen too often. I hate it when I hit the wrong combination of keys and I go to the end. As I've mentioned, I've got one of these Microsoft Sculpt keyboards. Can you see it? I'm holding it up to the microphone. And I love it because the keys, I mean, the ergonomics of it are great, and even the keys are like very thin. and so you don't have to press them far, but it has because of the shape, I guess, the home and page up, page down, and arrow keys are configured differently than my typewriter or than my keyboard at work and that I've used in the past. So I frequently get and even the delete and insert key are in different places. So I frequently get those wrong, and I sometimes mistake enter for delete or even backspace for delete. So, I mean, overall I like it, but it is kind of a pain sometimes. And then there's a separate keypad, which is neither here nor there. All right, where are we? So, explanation. I mean, I feel like I've been on page 14 and 15 80% of the day, but I haven't. Maybe two percentage points less. I'm basically just, as I do frequently, just trying to tighten things up a little, make it a little more snappy. I think I've mentioned before, and this is like duh, but when you construct sentences, I think this is kind of a rule or a best practices. You always want to have the payoff at the very end of the sentence. Just like a joke. You don't want to tell a joke where the punchline is 25% of the way in and then you finish telling the joke, but the funny part came early on. So like if you've got some big revelation, you can construct your sentence such that I'd have to see if I pop into one here, but you could construct it such that you say it early on, like if it's a person name or a location. You could take the same sentence and restructure it so it's the very last thing you hear, and it's like, wham, there it is. And that drives the conversation, that drives the scene, because if you bury it earlier, the audience is going to be thinking about it, and then they're maybe not even going to hear the rest of the sentence because they said, oh my gosh, he just revealed something super important. I've got to remember that. And then their brain is going, oh, but I'm hearing other words and they don't sound as important. But if you save it till the end of the sentence, then it's better. So having said that, is that daunting sometimes? Yes. Oh, look at that. The day's ended. It was a long day. Fruitful? Maybe vegetable. Thanks for sticking with me. I still would love to know if when it's all said and done, if any one person is going to watch all of these other than myself recording the voiceover. Doubtful, but it would be cool. Maybe I'll give out a big cash prize, or at least a prize. Small one. Screenwriter's Journey 131. Over and out.